owner or whatever it is of BioLife Health. And he's going to be talking health this evening as we have been talking health within recent time because a number of us have gotten sick, especially just before the fast or just recently concluded 7-day fast. A number of us got sick. And so we want to really pay emphasis on our health. And as I told you all, that a couple of days ago, I was on the radio, I think it was on Tuesday morning, when he was talking about something that I think, we should pay attention to. And he's going to talk about it this evening. So I'm not going to take away from that. So let me keep quiet now and introduce to you LiveRight Ministries, the LiveRight family, Pastor Dr. Rossi Ishmael Khan. Dr. Khan, good evening and welcome to our family this evening.
Thank you so very much, Professor. Of course, a very special good evening to you and your lovely wife, Pastor Nicole, your whole family, and the LiveRight family. I really feel like I'm a part of this family for some reason, even though I've been with you.
You are.
I certainly believe that. And I feel that from you all whenever I see you. And so it's very special for me personally whenever I come to spend this time with all of you. I don't take it for granted. And my prayer, very specially, is that this session is going to be a very practical one for you. Something that when you finish with this session, you could hold on to certain elements of information that can really help you and your family in practical terms. I have discovered in my own personal life that oftentimes what seem to be merely spiritual concepts in the Bible actually have very much physical applications. The Bible is a pragmatic book that makes sense. And I think that as we delve into the pages of the Bible, especially in regards to this subject of health, well, I feel that we can glean a whole new perspective of what God really has in store for us in our lifetime. I appreciated and listened to very carefully the words of Pastor Nicole just a while ago. And she said something that really is quite scriptural, that God, the Father, he loves us just as much as he loves his son, Jesus. And that is really important to us. And the good news about that is that while we understand that as a philosophical statement when we read it in the Bible, in reality, in practicality, well, God has catered for all of us in the same way he catered for Christ. He has provided every single thing that we need for life and godliness. And as a matter of fact, as you see in this session today, all the knowledge that you are going to acquire tonight comes out of the Word of God, where God gives us some very powerful solutions to all kinds of problems that we are going to be going through in our lifetime. So whether it be in the areas of business and finance, or perhaps even in regards to dealing with your children, or maybe it could be in terms of education and politics and technology and, of course, healthcare, farming, and the law and justice, whatever the case might be, whatever you've had to deal with in this nation, God has some powerful principles that he wants to convey to us. And that's why we should be interested in opening the pages of the Bible, because within it, we are going to find inspirational sets of information that apply to all the various sectors of society so that we can be a prosperous nation under God. And I think that that is a good aspiration to have. So tonight, I've been asked to talk mainly about the health of the colon. And I have to really credit Pastor Noel, because a lot of ministers do not deal with physical impediments, even though the Bible has a lot to say about this subject. I've been a minister for a long time, for which I give God thanks. And during that period, I have really seen for myself personally that we are ignoring some gleaming and obvious problems that people in our congregations have, especially in regards to sickness and disease. Some time ago, I was at Daybreak Assembly, and there was an all-night prayer meeting, I believe it was, or at least a half-night prayer meeting on that particular day. And people sent in their written prayer requests. And afterwards, we didn't just pray for these prayer requests, but I actually took these written prayer requests to my home afterwards. Of course, these are anonymous prayer requests. There's no names on them. And I read through all of these prayer requests, and I continued to pray for them. And the thing that really struck me is that there are two things that I saw in nearly every prayer request. And one of those two things had to do with sickness and disease. There are many people that are asking for help and for prayer in relation to this subject. And so what I feel is really appropriate is for us to educate ourselves. What people need, I often say, more than medication, is education. You have to put yourself in the right environment for you to learn. These principles don't just come naturally to us. They are anti-cultural. They are anti-natural in some cases too, because we've grown accustomed to a certain kind of habitual response. And because of that, a lot of what we teach today doesn't come naturally to any one of us because we have habits that we've been steeped in for a very long period of time that when somebody comes along and suggests something otherwise, well, it seems almost radical in some cases. And so, without any further delay, I just want to make some foundational statements as I begin. I, in the past, have taught about the 5 B's, and I'm not talking about that in great detail tonight, but B's like the bowels and the blood and the bones and a base diet. And of course, we are really talking about the bowels here this evening specifically. But these B's are really interconnected one with the other. The brain as well is the fifth B, if I want to be more technical with you tonight. And these all enjoy a very close relationship with one another. So the bowels affect the blood affects your brain, the brain affects the body in various ways. You can go on and on. But if you don't get bowel health right, you're going to put yourself on unstable ground, as it were. And I'm telling you this because the truth is, people do not detoxify their bodies properly daily. Now, I know that the subject of detoxification is vast, and I have long seminars on this subject. I don't want to bore you with information that isn't helpful per se. But let me just tell you that the very fact that there's a word called detoxification obviously suggests that there's something called toxification as well. In other words, you can toxify your body. You can introduce toxins every single day and poison the integrity of your blood and your body over a period of time. And this happens without people even realizing it. In most cases, actually, I've found out, especially in recent years now, that even though there are things that people deem as dangerous, they still become involved in them. And I have my theories on this. I think mostly because we have not yet experienced the love of God. Most people do not love themselves. You know, I once read a book that talked about the various types of love in the Bible, the love of a friend, the love of a family, the love of God, which is the agape love, and of course, the love of a romantic partner. But not many persons talk about the love of self. Jesus talked about it. He says, love your neighbor as you love yourself. And so if you don't love yourself, if you don't pay attention to yourself, well, then how could you really demonstrate a sense of love to anybody else? You would not be in a position to help anybody if you don't take care of yourself appropriately. You may not even be around. Maybe you don't have the capacity to do it because you are incapacitated due to sickness and disease, God forbid. So you have to pay some attention to yourself. There is not a challenge as far as scripture goes with seeing about yourself. It's not selfish to see about yourself. Anyway, I'm talking to you about toxification. People poison themselves every day. Let me give you a quick list of things that people do to put poisons in their bloodstream. I've been talking about this for a very long time. Maybe you've heard me say this in the past. I've done sessions like these previously. But just for information's sake, you can write these down very quickly. And if you're recording this session, maybe you can review it at some point. But things like high stress levels can poison the integrity of your bloodstream. You know this from experience already. You don't need a healthcare practitioner like me to say it to you because you know that when you're under intense stress, you experience all kinds of symptoms from headaches to insomnia, acid reflux. People even have heart attacks and strokes because of high stress levels and they don't manage properly. Then you have things like poor exercise habits and bad diet, indigestion, chemical exposure, constipation, which I'm going to be dealing with today. Things like microbial activity. I showed you pictures in the past of human blood where you have microorganisms swimming around like fungus, parasites, and bacteria. Even things like deficiencies and insomnia and dehydration. These are 10 major ways that people poison the integrity of their blood every single day without even realizing it. Now, The good news is that God has designed your body to eliminate these poisons in a quick manner. And those four ways would include firstly, respiration, which is done via the lungs. Perspiration is done via the skin. Then you have urination done via the kidneys. And obviously, you have defecation done via the bowels. So these are the four channels and four organs of elimination. Now, the thing about it is that there's a big connection between your brain and your blood. What's in your brain ends up in your bloodstream. And really and truly, you could say this about the bowels as well. What's in your bowels enters your blood at times too. What's in your bones can enter your blood. I have a long teaching on that, as a matter of fact. It's very interesting. But we are focusing on the bowels here this evening. And so the average person, which is really something that truly strikes me when I think about it, will eat 3, 4, 5 times a day in these modern times, at least 3 times a day. But the average person also goes to the restroom just once a day. And sometimes they skip days. Maybe they don't go every single day. Maybe they go every other day. So they're eating over 1,000 meals a year. And they're going to the restroom just 365 times or less. So hundreds of times they have not done what the body is really naturally supposed to. They end up with a problem which you would call toxic accumulation. These toxins are building up, they're not being eliminated in a timely manner. And so you know this when you experience certain symptoms, for example. Maybe you're one of those persons that you are irritable all the time. Well, maybe that could be because you're constipated. Maybe it could be because you have toxins in your bowels that need to be eliminated. Constipation can cause irritability in people. Maybe you know people at your office or your work that are irritable all the time. Maybe it's because they have some waste products inside of them that they have to get rid of. Or maybe you're one of those persons, well, you're passing gas all the time and it's rather foul. And maybe we can laugh at these things sometimes, but in the long run, that is a sign that you have toxins in your bowels that need to be eliminated. So you don't want to take it too lightly if these things happen all the time. Or maybe you're one of those persons, you're suffering from a severe skin condition. Well, there are many different types of skin conditions and many contributing factors. But one of those contributing factors in some cases is actually constipation. And so when toxins from the bowels are not being eliminated in a timely manner, well, these toxins don't just disappear. And some of these toxins find their way into your bloodstream where they cannot be tolerated for very long. And so your blood actually pushes these poisons out into the tissues, which is going to result in skin conditions like acne and psoriasis and eczema, rashes, soreness, swelling, irritation, inflammation, allergies, and boils, and so forth. You know, there's a passage of scripture where Jesus says, clean the inside of the cup, that the outside might be clean also. If you look at somebody on the outside, you can tell something about what's happening on the inside of them. If you find somebody that has a horrible skin condition, or maybe they are 500 pounds, maybe their eyes are yellow, whatever the case might be, well, maybe there's something happening internally that they need to pay attention to. And sometimes we overlook these things. We treat problems outwardly and externally and topically, whatever term you want to use, but we don't look at the inside. Most people never even get a chance to look at what their blood looks like. I've talked about this previously right here in this program. Oftentimes, on a daily basis at our office, I would look at the integrity of people's bloodstreams and I will often ask them sometimes, well, is it the first time that you're seeing this? And they have no clue that some of these things were happening inside. I'm telling you, you really need to discover what's going on. You can't just look at the outside alone. And so this is why I'm talking to you tonight about intestinal health. I'm talking to you about your bowels. This is really important. Now, I just want to tell you that when it comes to your bowels, the reason why you really have to put an emphasis there, and this is something you would not read in the average book these days, is because when it comes to the intestines, these are the foundational sites for blood production. Blood production originates primarily in the intestines. To be more specific, in the crypts of the small intestine, if you want to be really technical. Now, I know that in the past, if you've done science, maybe you might have read in a textbook some years ago, well, blood is made in the marrow of the bones. Well, that might be true, but that is only partially true. And there's a lot of controversy surrounding that, just so you know. Maybe I can cover that in a different session. But in regards to blood production originates in the crypts of the small intestine. It is only when the intestines are damaged or congested, then blood is made in the bones as a contingency plan. But the primary original site for blood production is the intestines themselves. This is why you eat and drink materials every day. Because if you didn't, how can you form new blood? Blood is not made out of thin air. And your heart doesn't make any blood. Your heart just pumps the blood. So what you eat and drink is turned into blood. And that blood is turned into the various parts of the body. So the quality of what you ingest is going to influence the quality of the blood that you have in a very direct way. Unfortunately, if you consume even foods that are healthy, if you are not digesting those foods properly, if it is that your bowels are not in good, efficient condition, well, then how could you process those foods and fluids in a manner that helps you to form new blood? You know, a lot of people have a low blood count. It's not just because they have damage to the intestines or because they don't eat appropriately in some cases. It is because they don't understand how blood production originates in the first place. I'm telling you something that is very rare to hear in the media or in textbooks today, things that I have known personally and we've seen in our practice for the last 21 or 22 years now, thereabout. It's very important. Now, when it comes to the crypts of the small intestine, in the small intestine, there are these little projections. You see them under a microscope. They're called intestinal villi. And these villi, they grab nutrients whenever you ingest foods and fluids. And that's a wonderful thing. And so these intestinal villi have to be protected. They have to be cared for in the appropriate way. However, most people, because they are constipated and they're ingesting lots of toxins every single day, well, they lay down the intestinal villi. And in many cases, the villi is damaged, or perhaps the villi is covered with sticky mucus. Many people have a lot of mucus that they swallow every day, just so you know, and that forms a film right across the small intestine and the intestinal villi more specifically, so that the villi cannot grab nutrients appropriately. This is a critical matter. And so I am building a case as to why you need to take care of your intestines, why you need to detoxify. You need to get these toxins out. But even more importantly, is not just that these intestinal villi can be covered and damaged and so forth, but what is even more interesting is that because of the toxins that are building up, most people don't understand that that creates an internal environment that is conducive for the production of harmful organisms like bacteria, fungus, and parasites. They thrive in a toxic environment. And this compounds the situation. And so you really want to be very careful about how you take care of the intestines. If you want to build healthy blood, if you want to prevent outward challenges, if you take care of what's on the inside. And so in regards to the bowels, we have to pay more attention to them. I just want to tell you that there are some things that people ingest every single day, and what people ingest can cause major congestion of the intestines. I'm just going to cover 3 of them tonight, and then I'm going to give you 3 good pieces of advice when it comes to relieving your bowels. And then I also have one particular special individual. Her name is Christine. In a short while, I'm going to bring her on just for about 5 minutes or so. And she's been working with me for quite some time now. And over that time, I have grown to really respect her professionalism. She's a colon hydrotherapist by profession. And one of the things that we do at our office is called colon hydrotherapy or colon irrigation. And she's going to tell you a little bit about that procedure. I think you're going to find it very interesting indeed, but also very helpful for you and your family. But before I get there, let me just tell you about the three things that really cover the intestinal villi and prevent blood production, and in the long run can cause severe damage to human health. These three things have a lot to do with the production of mucus. Now, mucus really starts off as a clear substance. And the reason your body forms mucus is because whenever toxins enter the body, these toxins are corrosive, so they can cause great damage. So, in many cases, your body creates mucus, and that mucus goes throughout the body and picks up these toxins and binds these toxins. That is when it becomes cloudy and yellow. And that's when it's meant for you to escort it out of the body by spewing it out into the restroom or in the sink in your bathroom. And so that's a protective measure. It's really a very brilliant thing that the body does. It's designed by God to protect itself, and this is one of the great methods in doing so. And so you don't want to just continue to swallow mucus all the time. You know, a lot of persons, when they get the cold, especially, which is really the body's way of detoxifying itself, when toxins build up to a period of time where it becomes intolerable, well, the body will begin to get rid of these toxins by using detox symptoms like coughing, sneezing, vomiting, cold sweating, diarrhea, excess urination, skin eruptions. All are ways the body tries to expel these toxins and get them out of the body. It's not meant for you to swallow. It's not meant for you to keep inside. I think it's a great thing if you get these toxins out, obviously. So the first of these three things that I want to mention to you tonight that can cause the overproduction of sticky mucus is dairy. So dairy is one of those things that I have talked about previously in a practical way. You know, at our office, we test the effects of foods on human blood. So we know which ones are truly beneficial and which ones are harmful. So when I give advice on diet, I'm not giving my opinion. I'm talking about what you can test, prove, and observe under a microscope. Yes, there are many benefits to dairy. Dairy products have a lot of nutrients, but they also have a lot of disadvantages too, which nobody talks about because they want to sell dairy and make a profit. I know what I'm telling you. Now, really and truly, humans do something that is quite extraordinary. Normally, people only drink milk when they are weaning. All species on the planet do that only during the period of weaning. Humans are the only species that drink milk outside the period of weaning. And we go a step further, we drink from a whole different species. We drink from cows, you see. And so the whole reason that you are born without teeth is so that you can suckle your mother's breast. That is the time where you need the milk for obvious reasons, so that you can become immune to various diseases and you can build the integrity of blood. That milk is very powerful. That's a whole subject by itself. And when you begin to grow teeth, that is a sign that you need to start weaning off your mother's milk. There are some people breastfeeding even beyond the period of weaning. I've seen that before. I think it's very unusual. And so you have to keep these things in mind. Cow's milk is designed for baby cows. It's not really meant for human consumption. And cow's milk, apart from being filled with nutrients, it is filled with toxins, especially very powerful sugars. That sugar is called lactose. A lot of young children, especially babies now, are becoming diabetic. Why? Because they're living on baby formula, which is made from cow's milk, instead of suckling the mother's breast, as they should be doing. Well, they use a different alternative, and ultimately, it puts so much sugar into the bloodstream of an individual. When you measure their blood sugar over a period of time, and then they become diabetic one day, sometimes we are quite surprised. But the truth is that we have been setting the stage for these kinds of things for a very long time. So you really have to be cognizant of it. I once met a young lady who said, I do even breastfeed my child. She says, I don't want my breast to sag. She actually said that to me, a young lady in her early 20s, you see. I found that was very, very unusual, almost abusive, as a matter of fact. So I'm just telling you about the fact that dairy, whether it be cow's milk, butter, cheese, margarine, yogurt, ice cream, all are made from cow's milk. In fact, some of these products are highly concentrated with cow's milk indeed. It takes about 12 pounds of cow's milk to make 1 pound of cheese. It takes about 20 pounds of cow's milk to make 1 pound of margarine. So you're talking about high concentrations of cow's milk. And I wondered, who's the first person to see a cow? And the cow is there in the field, and the cow gives birth one day to a lovely baby cow or a calf. And the calf is there sucking its mother's milk, and it's a nice experience for both of them as a family. And well, somebody comes along and brushes aside the calf and drinks the milk themselves. It's not a natural behavior, but you never question it because we are accustomed to drinking this kind of cow's milk from the time that we are young. And so, well, we just accept that as normal behavior. Same I can say about other animal products like eggs. You see, whether it be chicken eggs or turtle eggs or snake eggs and so forth. Eggs are meant for reproduction. They're not meant for human consumption. Yes, they have some nutrients in them. That is no question about that. But they also have some disadvantages too, especially large amounts of bacteria, which you don't want to see swimming around in your blood. And so obviously God has designed these creatures to reproduce by using eggs. It's not food. Yes, you can concentrate on the nutrients and you can say, well, there's lots of protein in eggs. Well, there's protein in your feces as well. There's protein in your urine. Doesn't mean that it's edible. I know some of you may not really like some of this kind of information, but it's really the truth that I'm trying to project to you here tonight, quite honestly. So somebody gives you an alligator egg or a snake egg, whatever the case might be, well, understand that it's not designed for that reason. If you don't understand the purpose of the egg, well, then you'll misuse it, as one of our late friends used to say. Anyway, secondly, you have, as we are talking about animal products, the flesh of animals is the most mucus producing element on this planet. If you want to produce sticky mucus, just eat large amounts of animal flesh altogether. Now, yes, there are some benefits to eating the flesh of animals. I'm not denying that. I'm just telling you that there are some disadvantages too. These are the rotting carcasses of animals. These are corpses that have been really out there for quite some time, and they're injected with a whole range of substances just to keep them looking presentable. And when it comes to these various types of animal flesh, they are filled with acids, in particular sulfuric acid, uric acid, nitric acid. You can go on and on. Lots of cholesterol, millions of bacteria, you name it. And so they produce a lot of sticky mucus because they are filled with toxins, you see. I know that that doesn't sound like a good thing to say because in our culture and what we have grown accustomed to, well, we just live on the flesh of animals altogether. But if you want proper intestinal health, if you want a healthy colon, well, then I want you to keep this in mind. Do you know that animal flesh is not even ever digested properly in your intestines? Actually, it rots in your intestine. If you want to be technical, it putrefies. There's some people, when they sweat, you can smell them from a mile away because they have dead animal flesh inside of them that is just rotting in the intestines. You see, when they go to the restroom in the morning, you have to run for cover. You have to get to the chopper, like Arnold Schwarzenegger says in some of these movies. You have to run for your life. Why? Because they have all of these toxins building up that really are putrefying in the intestines. That putrefaction is something that happens every single day. Some people have to wear deodorants, large amounts of deodorant. Why? Because they don't really smell like a human organism. Anyway, I'm just telling you something that I just have in my mind. But when it comes to animal products, well, these are some of the main culprits in regards to mucus production and will actually cause intestinal damage over time. There's no question about that. Now, just to be clear, what I'm teaching you here is really from the context of what is expedient. I'm not teaching a legal argument here. This is not a theological argument I'm making. I just want to be clear about that. You know, the Bible says that all things are lawful, but not all things are expedient or beneficial. And so it's not unlawful to eat anything you want. You can eat whatever you like to eat. I'm just telling you, according to the Bible, not everything is beneficial that you eat. You have to really be careful. You have to be discreet. You know, somebody twisted my words some years ago in a seminar, and I was talking about animal flesh, and they actually misquoted me when they phoned me and they said, Rossi, I heard you say that eating animal flesh is almost like it's a sin. And of course, I didn't say anything close to that at all. And so they said, well, are you really saying that eating animal flesh will keep you out of heaven or something? Well, actually, I teach just the opposite. If you want to get to heaven, eating animal flesh will help you to get to heaven even more quickly. So I think that's wonderful if you really want to get to heaven. It's not counterproductive in the context of heaven, as a matter of fact. So fine by me, it's really up to you. So anyway, it is one of the biggest causes, just so you know. There's research on this in many medical journals that show that animal flesh are related to various forms of colon cancer. There's no doubt about that. That is not my opinion. That is peer-reviewed research published in the major medical journals all over the world. The final thing that I want to just tell you about quickly is white flour. These processed flours are a big cause of constipation. They're a big cause of mucus buildup, and they definitely form that film over the intestinal villi that I was telling you about. When my father and I were much younger, I used to enjoy Indian homes, a lot of sada roti, and like it's in your diet, and you really couldn't do without it. Well, let me just tell you that white flour, that sticky substance that you are creating, it is not uncommon for people. If you look at micrographs today, you'll actually see in the colons of various individuals pockets of protein. And so this sticky substance that gums up the intestines really forms these pockets. And in these pockets, you find a lot of organisms like parasites, bacteria, and fungus breeding and multiplying and so forth. It is really difficult to get that out, which is why colon hydrotherapy or colon irrigation could be these three very quick pieces of advice in regards to the movement of the bowels. And I feel if you were to include these three safe pieces of advice, you can do a lot to regulate the integrity of your intestines and ultimately your bloodstream as a result. The first thing that I want to encourage you to do within the next 10 minutes or so before I bring Christine on is I want you to really focus on drinking a lot more water. So I just want you to keep that in mind. I've said to you in previous sessions that if you want to build healthy blood, you have to drink a lot of water because blood is almost completely made of water. And food that is hard and dry, well, digested food or stool, I should say, that is hard and dry is difficult to pass. And so you have to lubricate the intestines every day. And I don't just want you to drink water only when you're thirsty. This is a big mistake a lot of people make. So what you really have to do is develop the discipline of drinking water and set times in the day where you are drinking water frequently. It's not based on your feeling, because you wouldn't always feel to drink water and feel to eat right and feel to exercise and feel to pray and all of those things. The feeling is not important. It is the discipline that you have to develop. If you only wait until you feel to do something good for yourself, you'll never do anything. As a matter of fact, the more you do something is the more you feel to do it. So the feelings come afterwards. The feelings don't come before. Anyway, we can talk a lot about feeling. I don't like to talk about feelings and motivation and so forth because you wouldn't always feel motivation. When you're a child, you talk about motivation. When you become an adult, you have to discipline yourself, whether you feel like it or not. There are lots of times as an adult, I don't feel to go to work. It doesn't matter. I have mouths to feed. So anyway, I'm just telling you about water. You have to discipline yourself when it comes to this very important subject. And then secondly, I want to encourage you to exercise more regularly. And so there are certain categories of muscles in the body. And if you do your research, you would find out that there's a category of muscles called smooth muscles, which are primarily located in the intestines. And so these smooth muscles are very difficult to stimulate. You have to do it through exercise, especially exercises that engage the core of an individual. So make sure that you become more active, because in so doing, you can stimulate these smooth muscles of the intestines and help yourself to go to the restroom a little more regularly so that you can ultimately preserve the integrity of your blood in the long run. And then finally, I don't want to spend too long on each point because of time constraints. But if you're one of those persons that you are having great difficulty in going to the restroom, maybe you can include an herbal formula to help yourself. And I'm a big fan of herbs. You see, I'm a naturopathic doctor by profession. I'm not an herbalist. But in my research and research tests and seeing how herbs affect human blood, I think it is really beneficial. As a matter of fact, it's also scriptural. And herbs, I think, are a great inclusion for any single person. You know, the Bible says in Genesis chapter 1, the very first chapter of the Bible, God says to man a very good piece of advice. He says, I've given you every herb bearing seed. That word every is very important. Every herb out there. So anybody that comes along and says, well, you shouldn't be using herbs and herbs are not helpful and herbs are a scam and all of those kinds of things, people say, so silly. Well, when it comes to these herbs, if you include them, they can help to regulate the integrity of your blood in a host of ways, but especially help you to go to the restroom if you are constipated. So if you're looking for a supplement, or if you're looking for an aid to go to the restroom, an external aid, well, I think that instead of using harsh medications or harsh drugs or steroids in some cases, well, maybe you might look more towards a naturally based formula that is herbal. So in that way, we can guide you if you don't know how to use these types of products. I think that if you use it properly, you are going to really get some very good results that will relieve your bowels of a whole list of toxins thoroughly. You're going to feel the difference, but you're also going to see the difference under a microscope when you evaluate your health. And that is what we are looking for. We're looking for results at the end of the day. Now, I'm going to close my segment here now by giving you one last piece of advice, and then I'm bringing on Christine in less than 5 minutes. I believe that she's here with us right now. Now, for those persons that are having difficulty right now, and maybe you say, well, you know, I don't like to use supplements and I don't like to take these pieces of advice that you've given here tonight. Well, here is a very practical way to relieve your bowels. I'm going to give you a formula. You can write it down. It's very practical for persons that live in the Caribbean. It involves coconut. It involves young coconut water. So what you can do is you can buy a 2-liter bottle of young coconut water. So you're starting with that. Then I want you to take either lemon or lime or both if you want to, and squeeze lemon or lime into that young coconut water. You can do as much as you want. There's no limitation I'm putting on it. If you want to use 1, if you want to use 5, if you want to use 10, it's really up to you. Whatever you feel that you could manage and handle, that's fine by me. There's no harm in it. And so then all I want you to do is take that mixture and I want you to drink 16 ounces every 15 minutes. So every 15 minutes that passes, drink 16 ounces of that mixture. And so within an hour or so, you should be done with the bottle. And I can tell you, unless you have bowels of concrete, you're going to be going to the restroom soon after. I know a lot of folks that are constipated and they don't go every day, and they have grown so wary of using various medications to help themselves to relieve their bowels. Well, I don't want to use anything that is dangerous if I were in your position. And so I'm giving you a natural formula that is helpful for persons living in this country that have access to coconut that might be not too expensive, costing hundreds of dollars as some formulas might be, but it is going to benefit you, your bowels, and your bloodstream in a very safe and effective manner. And so I hope that this session was in some way helpful for you. But let me just close by talking to you briefly about colon hydrotherapy. I'm going to invite Christine now to do that. And then I'm going to give you some comments immediately after she's finished or so in the next 5 minutes. She is our colon hydrotherapist here at Bio Life Healthcare, and she's very experienced, very competent in her area of expertise. And she's done the colon hydrotherapy sessions of countless people in the last several years now. And so she is going to give you some information regarding that service and also talk to you about the procedure that she uses and so forth to make you a little more aware of what exactly we are offering and how we can help you and your family. So, Christine, if you are on with us, if you would not mind, you can unmute your microphone and also put on your video if you will. And you can indicate to us that you are here online in this session. Are you here with us, Christine? Please indicate if you are.
Okay, I'm seeing a couple of Christines. I'm not sure which one.
I see. It would be Christine. I am not seeing her here online with us. It's Christine Karimbokas. And so
yeah, that's what I was looking for.
I wonder, well, perhaps she's had some difficulty in getting online for some reason. All right.
Let me see. All right. Go ahead in the meantime. Let me see if I could connect with her.
Sure. That's okay. Well, let me just tell you briefly within the next couple of minutes or so. I do see a message saying that the Zoom is full. I think we have 100 participants right now as we speak. So maybe that can be because of the maximum capacity, as Sister Carleen indicates here. It may be difficult for her to get online. But let me just tell you then, from my perspective, what colon hydrotherapy can be very helpful with. It's a system that is FDA approved. It is really practical and helpful for people that really want to relieve the toxins in their bowels. All it takes is just a few minutes, about 45 minutes or so. And what the procedure involves is very simple. We have a disposable speculum. We use a new speculum for every individual, and the speculum is rather small. So you insert the speculum into someone's rectum. Now, somebody might say, well, that sounds very uncomfortable. It sounds even painful. Well, the speculum is even smaller than your feces. And so when you go to the restroom to defecate, sorry to be so raucous here tonight, well, you don't get any pain. And so in the same way, when you use the speculum, because of the small size of it, you do not get any pain. It is actually completely painless and comfortable for most, if not all, persons. And once it is inserted into the rectum, then the machine filters warm ionized water into the colon directly. And over a period of about 45 minutes or so, it gently withdraws years of undigested foods, plaque buildup, mucus and gas, parasites, and it breaks up pockets of protein in the intestines. And just in a few minutes, you can get the benefits of large numbers of bowel movements just in that short period alone. And so when it comes to colon hydrotherapy, I think this is really a wonderful service that anybody could take advantage of. You know, some persons go through lengthy detox programs for days and weeks, but just in one colon hydrotherapy session alone, it could be really helpful for persons that are interested in doing that. In fact, there are persons that actually do it once a month, and just to make sure that the colon is constantly clean, thoroughly. I think that's a big step in the right direction. So you might call it colonics, you might call it colon hydrotherapy, you could call it colon irrigation. There are many terms that are used for this kind of service for those persons that might be interested in something like that. We are offering it at our company at Bio Life Healthcare. Of course, you know, we have lots and lots of services, but this is one that I feel is truly helpful for persons that want to protect the integrity of their blood and their intestines in the long run. It is safe, it is effective. We usually charge about $375 for an advanced session like that. And if I'm not mistaken, I don't think that there are any persons nationwide that offer a service like this in a cheaper manner. We always strive to make healthcare more affordable for every single person. That is our motto, and we have done so in regards to all of our services. And so, with that in mind, I certainly think that it might be helpful for those persons that are interested in something like that. You can actually make an appointment over the phone. You can call us at 692 6603. Once again, that is 692 6603. And you can make an appointment to have colon hydrotherapy, colon irrigation done. Don't put it off if you're one of those persons that is interested in regulating your bowels and taking a big step in the right direction. I've seen people spend $5,000 on a cell phone, but wouldn't spend a couple $100 on their health. They say it's too expensive. Well, make sure that you prioritize your health, because if you don't love yourself, if you don't pay attention to yourself, well, then you would not really have the capacity to help and love anybody else. So I just want you to be mindful of all of these things I've said tonight. I know I've said a mouthful, but I think I'm going to leave it there for now. Maybe we can take some questions here before we get to the end. But nevertheless, my prayer is that this information is not just going to help you, but you're going to share it with somebody else so that you can get the results you're looking for by the grace of God. So once again, Pastor Noel and Pastor Nicole, thank you very much for the opportunity. I'm going to hand it over to you if you want to have a short Q&A. God bless every single one of you, and have a great night.
Wonderful. Thank you so much, Dr. Rossi. We still have some time, so we'll take some questions. Just to let you know, I'm not able to connect with Christine. I'm not sure. It's just going to voicemail, but at least we got the information. And just to let the folks know that I have made my appointment to do colon irrigation. I did one some years ago, and it was really, really refreshing. I can't think of another word. I felt light. I felt clean. I felt good when I was done. And so I want to encourage every single one of you to call. Could you give the number again, Dr. Khan? We will put it in the chat. So Joshua, get ready to put the number down so that they can call and make the appointment.
Yes, it is 692 6603. We are located on the Eastern Main Road in Arouca. So over the phone, we can give you directions. And I feel that this is going to be a great step for you in the right direction as far as colon hydrotherapy goes.
Wonderful. Wonderful. Okay, so we have some hands up, so we're going to take questions. I see iPhone 4. I'm not sure who that is. I see First Lady with her hand up and Elder Gail. So in that order, could we have your questions, please? iPhone 4, whoever you are. Joshua, can they unmute? Can everyone unmute?
Okay, hi. Yes, good afternoon. I was getting a message. Thank you so much for this enlightenment. But I am in the US and they do sell coconut water here. I do not know how authentic it is, but however, can I use lemon with water instead? Or can I trust the coconut water that they sell here?
Well, unless it's fresh, normally I don't recommend it, because I know in the States sometimes they have the canned coconut water, which obviously has a lot of additives and preservatives. We know in the Caribbean here, once you cut coconuts, they spoil within a couple of days, even when you refrigerate. So sometimes I'm a little bit careful about that. One of the good inclusions that maybe you could make, yes, the answer is to your question, you can use lemon in water that is not coconut water. That's fine by me, although it's more effective when the young coconut water is used. But if you don't have the young coconut water, I think a good inclusion might be green vegetable juice. Maybe something like juicing broccoli stalks or juicing celery or even cucumber and green vegetables in general. I think that those are a great inclusion if you want to know the truth about detoxification. I think that's one of the best things you can do. It's a little more costly in the long run, but
yeah, but I do put lemon and the young coconut, sorry, not the young cucumbers in my water all the time. So so you're saying if I juice those green stuff, and still, put the cucumber and the lemon, it would be a little more effective than just putting lemon and cucumber in plain water. That's what you're saying, right?
Yes, but the challenge I have sometimes is that even if you just put the lemon and cucumber in your water, sometimes you don't really glean the best benefits. So you want to squeeze the lemon or lime. I know some people just put the entire lemon into the water, or sometimes you just put the cucumber into the water and you just leave it there. No, you want to juice the cucumber and you want to get the juice from the lemon and the lime. Okay, so you don't just want to place it into the water there. Just to be clear about that. I think that is definitely very helpful. So you want to juice it or you want to squeeze it. The juice is important. All right.
Okay.
The juice is highly concentrated with nutrients that have to build better blood. So that's what you're really looking for.
Okay. Thank you so very much.
No problem
First
at all.
Lady, Pastor Nicole.
Good night to everyone, and good night to you, to Dr. Rossi Khan. I'm just pleasantly surprised by the look. God bless
Yeah.
you. It's
No.
it's different. It's different. Now, you mentioned before that some people will do this particular um procedure. I don't know. I procedure might be the one of a kind of wrong word, but they some people choose to do it once a month. So based on that, I'm asking you if it's recommended to do it once a month, or people choose to do it once a month, in terms
Mhm.
of the benefits that you want to get from it, because I'm gleaning from what you're saying is that
Mhm.
if we have, because our colon has, stools that may be stuck in there, and the bacteria that remains in there, what
Mhm.
happens is that it will produce bad skin problems, maybe
Mhm.
even have you feeling tired and weaky and all these kind of things. So is it something that we should really consider doing once a month, or it's really a preference? That's one. Also, what can we expect to receive or experience in our body after doing something like this? What can we look forward to?
Sure. Well, the answer to that question, first of all, in regards to the benefits of what you're looking for, the outcomes. Well, first of all, in regards to the outcome, first, to begin with, you get the benefits of having organisms eliminated by the body, more appropriately, fungus, parasites, and bacteria. These creatures, as all living creatures do, they eat and they excrete. So they feed on the cells of the human body. They excrete their poisonous waste products into your blood. And every chronic disease known to man is associated with the presence of these organisms altogether. So that is the first thing. Secondly, the acids and toxins that are eliminated, which are normally corrosive in and of themselves, well, you can expect that those will go out in the restroom as well. I certainly think that persons that suffer from excess gas buildup as well, that could be non-life threatening, but it could be very uncomfortable for persons that know what it's like to have gas pain. That can sometimes be terrible. And so a lot of that is eliminated during colon hydrotherapy sessions, not to mention the fact that materials that are caked on the walls of intestines that actually form a good breeding ground for organisms, well, those things are thoroughly eliminated altogether. I guess you could actually, from an answer like this, glean a whole list of additional benefits that have a lot to do with toxins and parasites, etc. But I feel those are the things that you can look forward to. You can experience a downgrade in acid levels, which means that less heartburn, uh, less instances where people can develop ulcers, certainly in regards to acid reflux for persons that normally suffer with that. For persons that have a low blood count because they have so many parasites and bacteria in their body that literally feed on red blood cells, well, that could be dealt with appropriately. And for persons that have intestinal discomfort altogether, in regards to some of the symptoms of this intestinal discomfort, and even chronic intestinal diseases like Crohn's disease and diverticulitis and so forth. I mean, these are things that if you were to keep your colon relatively clean, you can reduce instances of altogether. So the benefits are vast. We can talk a lot more about the benefits. But the answer to your first question was that in relation to the frequency of the service, it is helpful if you want to do it once a month. That is normally my recommendation, especially for those persons that really don't get thorough bowel movements, you see, and maybe they skip a day or two, maybe they eat in several times a day, but they're only going to the restroom once a day. It really can be helpful ever so often, especially once a month, to give your body, give your colon a thorough clean. There's no downside to it. So maybe it's one of those things that you might want to invest in. You will feel better. You will look better as well, just so you know, because a lot of the excess weight people have around that area, especially for those persons that have a big stomach and maybe on the just above the groin area, that is a very difficult area for people to really get down. Well, a lot of times it's because they have a lot of fecal matter just building up in that area. So you will look a little bit differently as far as that is concerned. But more importantly, when you put your health under a microscope, when you do your healthcare examinations, you will see improvement. And that is the main benefit that you want to glean from.
Thank you very much, Dr. Khan. And this procedure, how long does it last in terms of minutes?
Well, it takes between maybe half an hour to 45 minutes or so. I know a lot of people that actually fall asleep during the session. Christine is quite gentle, and that has happened. I mean, it is completely painless. Sometimes people are uncomfortable because they never tried it before. And you say, well, I wonder if I should really do something like this. Once you get there, you realize how gentle we are and how professional this service is and how helpful it can be to both you and your household.
Thank you.
Okay,
Sure.
Elder Gail.
Yeah, good night, everyone. Most times people are advised to use natural products, like soursop leaves, and because they are antioxidants. But what I've found within recent times is that when these herbs are recommended, be it for whatever ailment that someone may be suffering from, the first thing that people tend to do is look at the side effects instead of the benefits. So when people are encouraged to use herbs, what I've found.
I'm not sure if you can hear me, but I lost the volume on this particular question.
Are you hearing
Professor,
me?
maybe.
Okay.
Are you all hearing me at all?
Well, I am hearing you. I'm not sure why Dr. Khan is not hearing you.
Okay, I'm hearing now. Okay.
Go ahead.
No, I was saying that a lot of times when people when it's recommended that persons use herbs, plant-based medicines, the first thing they do is always look at the side effects and not at the benefits of using the herbs. And I always find that is sort of a drawback because the herbs are supposed to give you some kind of benefits, but you always find persons looking at the side effects. And when they look at the side effects, they usually don't want to use the herbs. This is just something that I found that decided to speak about herbs. But my main question today is, now, watermelon is supposed to be a detoxifier also. Is it recommended that it's used, but you eat it instead of juicing? Which is the better one to do? Because I use watermelon every day, but I chew it, I eat it as the fruit. But is it better to juice it or to have it? Because during our 7 day of liquid fast, I sort of juiced my watermelon. So I just want to find out from you which is the better option, juice or eat as a fruit.
Well, I think a better option is to avoid it altogether if you're doing a detox. I think that, especially when you're fasting, I think that watermelons are great because they have a lot of nutrients, they have great benefits. But if you use them frequently, especially when you're fasting, well, then you're going to put a lot of sugar into your bloodstream. Watermelon is extremely high in sugar.
Yeah.
And if you don't believe that, well, then test your blood sugar before and after you've eaten watermelon. And you see for yourself, a lot of persons, when they are fasting, I have talked to churches a lot about this in the past. Honestly, I when it comes to that, churches oftentimes when they're fasting use a lot of high sugar fruits. A lot of churches do these fruit fasts, okay? And they're putting so much sugar into their blood. A lot of people actually come to our office to complain about severe symptoms that they're experiencing after they've finished fasting regimens because they're just dumping lots of sugar in their blood. And so I think that if you want to juice something, I think the green vegetables, if you're doing a fasting regimen, is a lot more appropriate. It is low in sugar. There's no limitation on it. I think that is far more appropriate. I don't want you to get the impression that I'm against watermelon or anything. I'm just saying that if you use it in large amounts very often, you are going to raise your blood sugar level altogether. As far as herbs go, well, if used appropriately, if it's not overdone, and it's difficult to overdo the use of herbs, as a matter of fact, you should not get any negative effects whatsoever. I think that the pharmaceutical industry has lied quite a lot to people that are gullible about herbs and telling them that herbs have all kinds of dangerous effects on them. And I know that the recommendation that God makes in scripture is not just accurate, but is far superior to anything that we as men can produce in relation to medicine. So either God doesn't know what he's talking about because he doesn't have his doctorate, or God knows exactly what he's saying in Genesis chapter 1 because he made the human body and he created all of these herbs that he recommended to Adam. And well, we can accept that or not, but I think that God knows exactly what he's saying. So I hope that answered your question, at least in terms of watermelon. Again, please don't get the impression that I'm against watermelon, but in a context, I think that it is appropriate.
So outside of fasting, it's fine, or it will have the same effect.
Sure. If you want to use high sugar fruits like watermelon, well, all high sugar fruits in general have great benefits. So if you use them as a snack ever so often or as a treat, fine. But if you're using them in large amounts every single day, I would warn against that because of the intense blood sugar levels that you could accumulate. Yeah.
Thank you.
Sure.
Okay, so we have three more hands up. We're gonna
Dr. Richards, before we go to the next person, we have one question in the chat that we'd like to read before the next person. And
go ahead.
Okay, so the question is there or what is a natural recommendation for heartburn or indigestion?
Well, I think first of all, you have to understand what causes it in the first place. What causes acid levels to rise? You have to understand that. The answer to that question is four things. There's first of all environmental acids out there. Environmental acids are chemicals that people inhale or put into their skin, like chemical hair dye, secondhand smoke, and all of that. Then, secondly, there's something called microbial acids. This is when you have microorganisms in your blood, which you can see under a microscope. I see it every day. These creatures could excrete their waste products, and you call the waste products microbial acids. The third kind of acid is called dietary acid. What people eat and drink. Like meats have uric acid and dairy forms lactic acid. Soft drinks have phosphoric acid and so forth. And then lastly, there's what is called metabolic acid. Metabolic acids come from inside the body. Metabolic processes like high stress could create acid. Insomnia, indigestion could create lots of acid inside the body. Any acid that comes from inside the body is called metabolic acid. So there's environmental, microbial, dietary, and metabolic acids out there. So you have to understand that if you want to get acid levels down, like heartburn, acid reflux, that kind of thing, which are obviously acid related, well, you have to firstly stop putting so many acids in the body. We abuse ourselves continually. But a simple remedy that I think that you could start doing is putting some sodium bicarbonate into the water that you're drinking. People bake with it nowadays, so they call it baking soda. But the real name is sodium bicarbonate. It's an alkaline mineral that neutralizes acid very quickly. So if you want to put a little sodium bicarbonate into your water over a period of time, I think that is perfectly fine. It's safe even for children, and I would absolutely recommend that. All right, so maybe a good dosage might be, if you want to use a liter of water, just put about a quarter teaspoon into every liter of water you drink throughout the day. I think that's a good place to start. A small amount may not seem like much, but it does make a big difference. All right.
Okay, so we have 3 hands up. We're going to take just these 3 people because of time. We're going to take, because they had their hands up already. So we're going to allow them to ask their questions. And after this, well, we have Sister Terrian, Sister Jiva, and Sister Yane, who will be the last person. Okay, so Sister Terrian, go ahead, please.
Hi, good evening. Dr. Khan, I have 2 questions. You spoke about the cause of the buildup of the mucus in the body, with dairy. So would you say that the soya milk, the almond milk, it seems, and the oat milk, now that they're talking so much about almond milk, oat milk, are they less of a mucus built up? And the second question I have is, the colon irrigation, the insertion, is it similar to like the colonoscopy?
Right. Very good questions. First of all, the colonoscopy is an invasive kind of method where a camera is really inserted into the keister. And so, no, it's not as invasive as that at all. Ours is completely painless. We don't have to put you to sleep or anything. Anybody could do it, even young people. You don't have to be an adult either. Lots of young people do it in the past with us. So I think that is appropriate for any age group. I'm fine with it. But in regards to the first question, it was a great question. Yes, the other milks are much more appropriate. And so I want to encourage you to make your own milk. I know people buy oat milk and almond milk and all these kinds of things in the grocery store. Okay, fine. But it's better to make your own, because some of the ones you find in the grocery store have added sugar, and it's mostly water, by the way, just so you know. All right. So you don't really get much almonds when you buy almond milk. So you can make your own milks like almond milk, pecan milk, walnut milk, macadamia nut, pine milk, sesame seed milk. It doesn't matter. I like to make hazelnut milk all the time. It's great. So all you do is simple. If you're making almond milk, you soak almonds overnight in water. When you get up in the morning, you take the almonds, you put it into a blender, you add water, you blend it, and you strain it. And all of a sudden, you have almond milk. Maybe you can add a few things to it if you want to, maybe some cinnamon or whatever the case might be to flavor it if you would like to. So that's simple. Maybe you can bottle it and sell it to somebody as well. Do a business, register a business and do it so that you can help other people. It's a good step in the right direction. I think we need much more of those kinds of things, to be honest with you.
Okay,
Thank you.
Minister Jiva?
Hi, good evening, everyone. What I find out is if it is safe for a child like 12 years old, and also if there's someone who has regular bowel movements, so they can do it and they go to the bathroom.
I can barely hear you. I'm not sure if you're hearing me, but I could barely make out what you're saying, my sister.
I'm not hearing either.
I think she asked if it's safe for a child. That's the first question. And secondly, she was talking about if someone has regular bowel movements, if it's recommended. I think that's what she was asking.
The answer, right. Okay, the answer to the question is yes. Very young children can do colon hydrotherapy as long as they remain still. If you find persons that I've met children that are relatively well behaved and sit still for all kinds of things. But then there are some things that we do at the office. It really is unhelpful to involve children at some stages. So if you can help them to remain collected, I think it's fine. In regards to the other question, if you have good bowel movements, if colon hydrotherapy is still helpful, the answer is yes, because sometimes, like I was saying earlier, we can have these pockets of protein that are very difficult to really get rid of because of years of mistreating ourselves. So even if you have the regular bowel movements, well, sometimes there are some things that need to be power washed, so to speak, that are really caked on the walls of the intestines for a long time. You can actually see these things in autopsies when you look at people's intestines. It really is a severe issue some people are going through. They don't even realize it. And then they're experiencing all kinds of issues and they wonder why. But a lot of it starts in the colon. So yes, it is beneficial, even if you have good bowel movements today.
Wonderful. Sister Yane.
Hi, good night, everyone. So my question is about I would assume that your colon health is linked to your gut. Well, all of that is your gut health, right? When we refer to gut health, is your stomach and it's all of your intestines and whatnot. My question is with respect to fasting and really like preserving our gut health. If there are any recommendations as to like how we approach, like just like maybe a quick rapid fire, 3 things that you would recommend that we do to make sure that we don't in doing good do bad.
Yeah, in regards to fasting, I certainly think that is a great thing to include in your lifestyle if it's done correctly. So first of all, there's one rule across the board in fasting. You must hydrate. I don't like fasts that exclude fluids. I know some people that will abstain from food, fine, but they abstain from fluids as well. I do think that is a good idea, in my humble opinion. So you must drink a lot of water every single day when you're fasting. There's no doubt in my mind about that. Secondly, I think that because you should include fluids when you're fasting, I think the green vegetable juices are most appropriate here. So you get the detox effect, you get a high nutritional content as well, because your body needs nutrients even when you're fasting, just so you know. So that I think is a big step in the right direction. But there is something that is often overlooked as well when it comes to fasting. And this might sound really strange, but I want you to do the passive types of exercise. I know people don't talk about exercise when they are fasting, but you have to keep blood flowing, because when you are detoxifying and when you are fasting, you are detoxifying, by the way. It is a detox procedure. But how toxins get out? Toxins that are in the tissues, when you are fasting, when you are detoxifying, those toxins in the tissues don't just disappear. They don't just get out of the body and vanish into thin air. They are dumped into your bloodstream. And that blood, as it circulates, eventually will eliminate these poisons properly. Okay, so that is fine. So you have to keep blood moving when you are fasting. And the way you do this is with passive forms of exercise, nothing vigorous. Things like the stretching exercises, the deep breathing exercises, and maybe some light walking as well to keep blood flowing. You don't just want to lie down on your bed all day when you're fasting or sit down on your couch all the time. Keep blood moving. Again, you don't have to overdo anything, but make sure you hydrate properly. Make sure you get a good source of nutrition. I think that the green juices are a good inclusion in that regard. And thirdly, do the passive forms of exercise so you can keep blood flowing, so that will speed up the detox effects. Some people have, because the detox process is very slow, in some people, because they're not hydrating and they're not moving, well, those toxins take a long time to be expelled. So in the first couple of days when they're fasting, they feel sick. And so you have to get those toxins out now. Keep blood flowing, keep hydrating, and that will accelerate the process of detox. So in the first couple of days, you don't feel as ill as you would normally do when you are not fasting appropriately. So those would be my 3 pieces of advice. We're keeping it simple when you're fasting, and I hope that helps you a little bit.
Okay, folks. Well, I think that's all the time we have. We've gone over
Dr.
the time
Richards,
already.
we have
Yes.
one more question in the chat.
Go ahead.
Okay, so the question is, would you recommend detoxification when taking medicine? And if so, how often?
The answer to that question varies. So in regards to different types of medications, well, you don't want to lose the efficacy of the medication themselves. And so I would say before you go into any detox regime, depending on the course of medication that you're using, you may want to get the advice of your healthcare practitioner. So I don't want to make any general statements about that. I think you should consult with your practitioner before you make any decision to do that if you're using medications that deal with life-threatening issues. And I'm very careful about that. So I don't want to put anybody in any unnecessary danger by making statements that are not advisable. All right?
Okay, folks, I think that is it. If there are no more questions in the chat, we're gonna have to wrap up here. I know there may be a lot more questions that you desire to ask, and maybe if you take the number, then you could probably get in contact with Dr. Khan. And if you would, one last time, Dr. Rossi Khan, give the number that people can call you to make an appointment to do the colon the irrigation. Could you
Sure.
give them the number? Yes.
Yes, it is 692-6603. Once more, 692-6603. We are on the Eastern Main Road in Arouca, and you can make an appointment ahead of time. It's $375 to do colon hydrotherapy. Make a big step in the right direction. I think that you're going to be happy that you did in the end.
Yes, I endorse that. I endorse it fully. Well, once again, your session has been very, very informative, Dr. Khan, and we are really happy that we have had you here tonight sharing with us. We have been enlightened and educated. Thank you. Thank you on behalf of First Lady, Pastor Nicole, the elders, the ministers, and all the family members. We want to say thank you so much. May God continue to bless you and your business, your family. And you know, you start off by saying that you feel you're part of this family. You are. We just want to let you know that you are part of LiveRightMinistries. And so when you come here, you're not a stranger. You may be visiting us because we know God has you elsewhere, but you are part of us. And we thank you so much for sharing, you know, all this information that is most relevant. Thank you. God richly bless you. And we'll see you again another time. And folks, please call the number, make your appointment, see about your health. It is very, very important. Okay, so thank you. So folks, this is it for tonight. Remember, today is Thursday. This is our last meeting for this week. We are back here Sunday morning for Sunday morning ministry at 9 a.m. And of course, Monday, again, we have prayer. And Tuesday, our kingdom study. So have a wonderful weekend. I am going to hand you over to Joshua to close off. Have a wonderful, wonderful weekend. God richly bless you. Our radio program is on this week at 5:15. So